Good morning, and thank you for joining us for On Air with Aspire HR. This month's topic is SAP Benefits. Before we get into the questions, I wanted to introduce the company and our speakers. Aspire HR is a SuccessFactors and SAP partner focused exclusively on HR. We have proprietary software solutions designed to reduce project risks and increase user efficiency. We have experienced and knowledgeable consultants, as you'll see this morning, and remote development from our Dallas Delivery Center of Excellence, fondly known as the DDCE. We are the only HCM company in the U.S. to be accredited in SAP's Active Quality Management Program, and we're pretty proud of that. About On Air with Aspire, it is a call-in forum meant to answer your questions surrounding specific modules. Your questions can be functional or technical in nature. You just need to ask them. So we have our subject matter experts standing by. So I'll introduce Chad Johnson first. He is a principal consultant here at Aspire with more than 10 years of experience in SAP HCM and has focused on PA, OM, and benefits. He also has extensive technical aptitude with data conversion strategies. Ricardo Palma is a senior consultant with us with more than 14 years of experience with a focus on benefits, PA, OM, training events, management, PD, SAP ad hoc query, and authorizations. All right. So this should last about a half an hour. The first 20 to 25 minutes will be submitted questions. We had quite a few, so I apologize if we don't get to you in time, but we will be reaching out to you after. And we always reserve time for your live questions, so get those going as well. So gentlemen, question number one. Has anyone ever configured the 401k and 401k catch-up into one plan so a company can match is calculated on both? And also, has the IRS limit automatically changed on that plan, and when the employee is age 50 and able to do additional catch-up amount, with the follow-up question of, I'm assuming the SAP standard way is to configure two different plans?
Yes, 401k and 401k catch-up can be defined in one plan. A specific configuration is available for this concept in Payroll USA benefit integration. The first point of configurations is the constant for benefit processing, maintained constant for benefit plans. There is several constant. The first one is the 401KL, that is setting the combined limit for deferred plans that is currently by law 17,500. Then you have the second constant that is set base salary limit for 401k contribution that is currently $225,000. And finally, you have the constant 401CL that set the combined limit for age catch-up contribution. Here is when we define the additional amount that can be contributed for legit catch-up plans. And basically, the law is 5,500 at this moment. And then we have a second configuration that is set up the catch-up contribution. Here we can define the age limit, the lowest age that can have the employee for a start contribution to the catch-up contributions, and that is currently 50 years old, and the specific wage type that you will use for storing and displaying in payroll the employee and the employer catch-up contributions. So using these options, payroll will generate the accruals until get the regular contribution limits. And then for those 50 years old or older, will allow 5,500 additional contribution for the year. This additional contribution will be assigned to the catch-up wage types defined in the configuration step we already mentioned. This is the standard approach and provides an easier configuration and more efficient process from end user and administration perspective. The employee only needs to enroll and define contribution to one plan. Adjustment as retroactive calculation are also supported and is aligned with possible changes in the legislation and the related changes in SAP.
Excellent, thank you. Number two, when setting up benefits for domestic partners, do you need to set up separate plans in order to control the costs being pre or post-tax to the associate?
Well, you can actually set up just a single plan. You can use dependent coverage options just like you do for spouse and child coverage. You can set up a separate dependent coverage option for domestic partner and child of domestic partner coverage. You have a little bit of configuration that goes behind this is the dependent coverage options. So you specify the minimum and maximum number of taxable or non-taxable dependents here. So you can just set up your dependent partner and child of dependent partner or domestic partner as part of that configuration. You also have health plan cost rules. So just like you set up your health plan cost rules for your other dependent coverage options, you can set those up here to include the pre- and post-tax cost as well as the imputed income that goes along with the plan. And then you set up the wage types that go with that on the payroll side through the benefits integration. So you also have to set up the dependent and beneficiary eligibility in that section of the IMG. So in this feature you have dependents for type 21 for subtype 13, which is the domestic partner subtype, as well as subtype 14, which is the child of domestic partner. And then you set up whether these are taxable or non-taxable subtypes, and this is available for these two standard subtypes that SAP delivers. So then you use these subdivisions in the dependent and beneficiary eligibility rules for defining which of them are eligible for a particular plan and a particular dependent coverage option.
Excellent, thank you. All right, question number 3, we're trucking along. Are you aware if SAP will be delivering system changes to accommodate healthcare reform regulations relating to the 30-hour requirement? With a follow-up question of how are other companies planning to deal with these regulatory changes?
This option is already available in benefit configuration. It's part of the flexible administration programs employee eligibility. This is also called the micro eligibility in opposition to the macro eligibility that refer to the assignment of plans to the benefit programs. In these sections, it can be defined the minimum of hours required for being eligible for a plan. These minimum hours can be defined as checking the number of hours for a period based on the planned working time defined in time management and stored in the info type 7, or can be in fact the actual hour that the employee is working if they are recorded, and they are determined based on standard report reading the data from time management as well, but the info type when you are storing the actual data. These eligibility rules can differ in the same benefit program using the eligibility groupings feature. So each eligibility rule can have different versions based on the different option that is offering this feature. For example, the employee or assignment as employee group, employee subgroup, company code, personal area. So for example, we can define that for those employees that are hourly and are working based on actual hours, we'll use the option using actual hours, and those that are salaried that usually are working based on planned time, we can use the option based on the planned time. You can also use other criteria as personal data, postal code, marital status, or you can also use benefit data as the first and second program grouping, the benefit plan, and other options. These eligibility rules then are assigned to each plan in each combination generated in the benefit program by the first and second program grouping. That they want to reduce the income that they are receiving in a specific period, and they are reducing part of that in these highly compensated plans, and they can be then used as a investment, and the employee can decide when he wants to get that money back. And if you are thinking how we are going to configure these plans are configured as saving plans, and you can define that for these highly compensated employees, you will have a limit in the base salary and the bonus that the employee can move into these saving plans. And usually then that money, the balances and the investment are managed by external companies, and not in SIP, still we can define at SIP level that we can manage the percentage of that contribution that can be assigned to different stocks, but not the balances. And finally, how that money is going back to the employee and how it's going to be taxed or not taxed, that money is defined in the plan, but not in SIP, because finally those balances are managed by these external companies.
Excuse me. Okay, this is a long one, so I'm not actually going to read it. But there's questions around same-sex marriage challenges and benefits.
Okay.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, so this one I read through. Basically, it's about the tax treatment of same-sex marriage benefits and how it's handled differently in different states. So again, the configuration can all be in the same plan. We might have a different subtype on 21 if it's handled differently for taxes than domestic partner. But again, you assign the wage types in the benefits integration. This question specifically is asking about the different tax treatment of these premiums for same-sex marriage depending on what state the employee is being taxed. So basically on the payroll side, the wage types can be set up for certain tax treatment at the wage type level, and so depending on what state tax is being applied to the employee's income and to their deductions, those rules can be set up on the payroll side so that they're taxed appropriately at the state level.
Next question. Number 6. Oh, my apologies. Have you set up dependent life insurance plans and require the employee to select which dependents are enrolled, similar to health plans? And can this be done in standard configuration on IT 168, or does the plan need to move to IT 377? Chad?
Yes, that's me. I'm trying to, my screen is not updating there.
Sorry.
1 second.
Is that any better?
Almost. No, I'm still on question 5.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry. There we go. That should be better.
Okay. Okay. Right, there we go. So when setting up the life insurance plans, there are 3 standard ways, or 3 standard people that you can base the costs on. So SAP provides, the cost can be based on the employee, the spouse, or the domestic partner. By using these options in the configuration, it controls whether or not the coverage shows up. So if you don't have a spouse, if the cost is based on the spouse's age, then that particular plan won't show up when they go to the enrollment screen. Now there aren't options for other subtypes such as children, or if you have civil unions or something else that you want to cover. So those plans would actually show up regardless of whether or not you had that type of dependent. So if you had no children, your child life might show up. Now you can do an enhancement that can kind of leverage the same logic that's applied when using spouse or domestic partner, but there's no standard solution for providing life insurance coverage for dependents other than the domestic partner and the spouse.
All right, and we're going to regress your question, which just proves that this is, in fact, a live presentation. All right, so back to question 6. How can you configure health plan EOI processes for cases where the coverage options aren't changed? And there's a for example on your screen.
As mentioned in the question, EOI are related to the enrollment or changes in the plan option and dependent coverage. EOI is not triggered for adding a new dependent, as for example a dependent coverage, EE plus family, as the costs are usually not changing regardless the number of children enrolled in the plans. However, the incorporation of a new child to a health plan can be controlled by the creation of the adjustment reason. The employee can create the new child by ESS, but in order to add it to the health plan, is required an adjustment reason, which are infotype T78 subtypes, in this case usually called new child. The creation of this subtype can be defined as created by human resources areas. When the child birth certificate is received. Using this option, the inclusion of a new child in the benefit plan won't be allowed to the employee until human resources receive this evidence of insurability. In this case, the birth certificate. So we are not proposing using EUI, we are proposing to use adjustment reasons and having the central human resources areas or decentralized human resources areas just creating that subtype that will allow to the employee include the dependent until they receive this birth certificate.
All right. Let's get number 7. What are some ways that companies are dealing with wellness credit type plans, and do they pass an amount on IT-14 or IT-15 or set up a plan on IT-236?
Well, some companies, different companies have different solutions for this requirement, and some companies have different costs depending on employees in wellness plans or not. In some cases, based on conditions evaluated by the health plan providers, and these providers are providing an inbound file to the company. They are confirming which employees are eligible for these health plans based on wellness reduced costs. These wellness conditions can also be defined as a prerequisite for a health plan with reduced costs. So until you have that wellness as a plan, you will be able to enroll to a wellness plan that has the health plan with the reduced costs. The wellness could also be defined as a credit plan that will cover the health plan employee costs. In this case, you have to select in the benefit plan general data configuration step that this plan allows using credit for paying the cost. And based on the amount defined in the credit plans, this amount will be automatically reduced or paying the cost of the health plan.
Number 9, can HSA plan deduction be configured for 24 pay periods, first and second paycheck of each month, for example, rather than 26 pay periods, be it via benefit configuration? And if so, how? Our research and configuration doesn't seem to allow
it. So yes, we can do that. It's an option, a standard option. This is also part of the payroll USA configurations. And in the benefit integration, you have the point called assigned deduction models. So basically, in this configuration, you will select your benefit plan, and you will assign to that benefit plan a specific deduction model. And SIP provides different standard deduction model, and as you can see in the screen, we are identifying 2 standard deduction models that in fact refer to this first and last period of the month. So basically what's happening in this case is the employee is under a bi-weekly payroll, and that means that would have 26 payroll during the year. But the request in this case is just having 24. So during 2 months during that year, the payroll that is running in the middle is not the first one and it's not the last one, will not generate the deduction related with this benefit plan, and consequently, we will have just 24 deductions for that benefit plan during the year. And as you can see, there are several other different kind of deduction models, each payroll period, each month. So even if I have, for example, a payroll that is each week, I can define the deduction is the last payroll of the month or the first payroll of the month. You have different options, and also this is a configuration that payroll areas can also adjust and create deduction models based on the specific client requirements, and then assign to the benefit plans. Obviously, this involves all the support from the payroll configuration team in order to be sure that this configuration is properly working.
We have reached that time where you, if you have any live questions, which we've kind of been overwhelmed with questions recently, so that's fantastic. It's another good time to enter them, and we will have Chad and Ricardo answer them. Let me pick one. It looks like we've got a good one here. Is there any way to we are changing to an account-based health plan, a high-deductible health plan with HSA, and have annual enrollment approaching on November 1st. How can the enrollment transaction HR Benefits 0001 know your limits for HSA based on your dependent coverage options, such as employee only or employee plus one or more? I know the limits are looked at in the payroll processing, but can you restrict this during enrollment? And there's a for example. For example, employee chooses HDHP medical plan as employee-only coverage option. The HSA limit should be $3,300 annually and not $6,550 for more than one employee. Also, we have a requirement that the employer contribute $750 to HSA regardless if the employee contributes. The requirement is that the $750 is given as one lump sum amount on January 1st. Do we need to set up a separate plan for the $750 from the employee contribution plan? Wow.
Right. So the issue here is that you need to control the HSA contribution depending on what type of plan they have, or what type of coverage they have, whether it's employee only or employee plus, family and or spouse or child. So as I'm sure the person who asked the question knows, that you can set up co-requisite plans that control that you have to have a high deductible health plan before you can sign up for HSA. But the issue they're running into is probably that you can't differentiate that my employee-only coverage only applies to employee-only contribution to an HSA, whereas my employee plus dependents allows me to contribute more. So one way to get around this is to set up separate plans so that you have an employee-only plan. That co-requisite would be the employee-only HSA contribution, and you also have an employee plus dependents plan that's separate from that, which allows you to have a co-requisite plan of the HSA that has a higher limit. The second part of that question, what was that again, Katie?
The $750.
Okay, $750 to HSA, regardless of if the employee contributes. So that would probably be, since that's just a one-time lump sum, that would probably be handled as it's not something that the employee enrolls in. It's something that they're given automatically. So I would probably handle that more as a one-time payment using the HSA wage type there.
Okay. Gosh, lots to choose from. Another good one is there a way to apply different evidence of insurability limits to new hires and first-time enrollers that are not new hires using SAP standard configuration? Another good, for example, a new hire are allowed to enroll at a $100,000 max coverage on their supplemental life insurance without presenting EOI, but first-time enrollers, not the new hire, have to show EOI for any amount of coverage.
All right, so the benefits configuration for EOI doesn't always match up with the requirements of companies implementing benefits. So what SAP controls is your initial enrollment. It controls your increase to coverage, and also controls maximum anytime enrollment. It sounds good. SAP just picks up their initial enrollment as the first time they enroll, not necessarily the first time they're eligible. So typically to meet client demands for EOI, if it's being managed with an SAP, we have to put an enhancement in place. So we typically have an enhancement that we create for that, and then manage those specific to the client requirements.
So we're looking through questions. There's quite a few, and I know that we're running low on time. Are there...
We got additional questions related that if we can prorate the deductions for the benefit plans based on the number of days that the employee was working, if it was hired in the middle of the period, or change the plan in the middle of the period. And yes, that is possible. In the payroll schema, you have in the section for the benefit deductions a configuration that allow you to define when you are going to determine if the employee is or not in the plan. And you have several options. One option is say, I will use as a key date the start of the payroll period, and can also define as a key date the end of the payroll period. I can also define as a key date the paycheck date. And as part of those options, you can also define that you want to prorate the amount. So it's not going to use a specific date, it's going to prorate that amount. That is a payroll configuration related with the benefit integration, usually performed by the payroll team. But it's part of the schema, and you have those options defined in the payroll schema for the benefit deductions.
And on that note, I think we will probably wrap up as we've reached our time limit. I have recorded all of your questions, so don't worry, we'll be reaching out to you later, or probably earlier next week as it's a Friday. My name is Katie Brown. Thank you for joining us for Aspire HR. On Air with Aspire HR, we've got Chad Johnson and Ricardo Palma. You can reach out to me for a copy of this recording at kbrown@AspireHR. Our next session of On Air with Aspire HR is October 11th, which is on a Friday. It'll always be on the second Friday of the month at 10 o'clock in the morning Central Time. Thank you, and have a great weekend.